Hello, everyone. I'm Scott Soini with Avalara, and thank you for joining us today for the Product Updates webinar. Let me just move to the disclaimer and the legalese. And some things we need to say are we are recording today's presentation, so you'll be able to come back and rewatch it on demand. You'll get an email in the next 24 hours or so to access that recording. If you have any questions throughout the webinar, please feel free to submit them during the presentation in the Q&A box below the media player. And also be sure to click on any links in the related content section for more information, because that is where we have the links that all the speakers today that are talking provided. We also have links to all of our release notes in case there's some things that you want to check out that might not be covered on this call. And let me move into the agenda today. I'm going to go over just a quick core mission of this webinar going forward into 2024. We'll be talking about Accounts Payable for AvaTax, the consumer use tax launch, the Oracle embedded in partnership, and how it helps better serve your customers, Avalara for Salesforce apps, as well as the Service Cloud launch, the Microsoft D365 Business Central inline calculation feature launch. And firstly, let me just talk about the core mission. And I think a lot of you have already seen this slide if you've been a partner or customer of ours for a while. And I first wanted to kind of level set on the vision and strategy for this webinar and going forward into 2024. Our mission is to provide the most significant product roadmap updates that are most relevant to partners and or customers. And again, without our partners and customers, there's really no Avalara, and you've helped us scale to this point in our journey. Next, I will be talking about the speaker information. First off, we'll have Naveen. He'll be talking, he's our lead AvaTax product marketing manager. He'll be talking about the Accounts Payable AvaTax API updates. He has been part of that evolution over the last 6 years. And he will be starting with the consumer use tax. And then next up, Kate will be our Director of Global Solutions and the Oracle partnership. She is here to show you how easy it is to use our embedded aspects of the Oracle partnership to better serve your customers. Then next up, we have Adrian, Product Manager of all of our Salesforce apps. He will walk you through the ecosystem as well as the Service Cloud launch that I said before. And then lastly, we'll wrap up the day with Logan, our Technical Product Manager in the D365 Sales for Business Central users. And this is kind of a specific ask from the partner community, and he'll be going over the inline calculation feature that just launched over the last couple of months. We are ready to get started, so I'll pass it off to Naveen. Take it away, Naveen.
Thanks, Scott. Welcome, everybody. My name is Naveen Agrawal. I've been with Avalara for more than 11 years now. I'm very excited to present AvaTax for Accounts Payable, which is a holistic solution for US-based consumer use tax assessment, as well as in other geographies, all the tax liabilities on the accounts payable side, like GST versus PST assessment in Canada and input VAT recoverability in other geographies. Let's move to the next slide. Let's talk about the consumer use tax challenges. Why is consumer use tax really a challenge, right? One, because as a business, you don't know if your vendor, if a new supplier is going to charge you tax or not. And verifying every invoice manually is time consuming, and it needs special skills to understand use tax rules and rates, and they're complex, like sales tax rates. And then making sure that your processes and workflows are in alignment along with your ERPs and integrations you have for tax solutions, and overall audit risks are high. So let me talk about what consumer use actually is, right? When is consumer use due? We all know about sales tax. You collect that from your customers directly. However, consumer use is due as a buyer when you have purchased something from a vendor who has not charged you sales tax, or if you have moved your goods for uses within the company and moved them from one location to another location, then also based on the use and the location, consumer use tax is due. And when do you fall into that net of assessing consumer use tax and accruing it. Typical examples will include a vendor, a supplier who does not have nexus or obligations to collect tax in your state or in your jurisdiction, right? So he's not going to collect sales tax, and that's where you need to assess yourself use tax. And then you made a purchase which was originally going to be resold, so you were not taxed, but then you instead end up using it. Think about you use those samples for freebies or your own marketing events. Then you purchased in one jurisdiction in one state, but then your employees, your sales persons, or your warehouses or your branch offices are in another states or jurisdictions, and you consume those items into the other jurisdiction. So you owe the variance of one state versus another state's use tax rates. And the like I already talked about, free giveaways or correct the use of that material, and that's an event for consumer use tax. And then movement of any fixed assets within the company will also cause that same thing. All right, let's talk about how do companies manage consumer use tax liability. So there's a range of everything from not really worrying about consumer use tax to employing some kind of software or outsourcing it to big five firms for managing it for themselves. We have seen all that range from accounting team practices to another accounting team practice. First up is the ostrich mode, which is you don't do anything until you get audited, right? Pretty common, right? Don't worry about it until an auditor is there and asking you for it. Or sometimes controllers will make a lump sum payment based on their overall purchases done from a particular vendor or state. Or the other method is you manually sample your paper invoices from vendors and see whether you were charged or not. And the same thing goes for a spreadsheet, Excel, right? Or doing a reverse audit using a support software to see whether you were charged tax on those or not, including your liability GLs and tallying those GLs and reconciling them with your invoices. And then sometimes, you get external multi-year reverse audit, which is the daunting one here is that you need to go back to all your records and prove the auditor how much you purchased, which was not taxed, and then pay a penalty as well as the use tax on it. So what we have got for this one. So what is the solution, right? The solution is an end-to-end automated software system which takes care of assessing on your invoice by invoice basis whether your vendor charged you correct sales tax or not, and if not, how do you categorize that and book it and accrue it so that you are self-assessing and not really getting into that audit risk, and also can defend it in the audit. So Avalara brings you Avalara AvaTax for accounts payable, which helps you identify the overcharge and undercharge scenarios, whether your vendor charge you correct sales tax or not, flag them appropriately if they're a match, or if you were undercharged, then give you the use tax rate and variance to accrue. If you were overcharged, also flag it and report it so that you can go back to your vendors and correct that situation. It provides you a way of centralized configuration. So you may be buying into different systems. Maybe you have an employee expense system, but you also do purchases or procurement and some of the ERP. Whereas in AvaTax, you can centrally configure rules for your allocations and your thresholds and apply them to all different systems, be it real time, coming directly from your ERPs, or you're uploading a batch of those transactions. And then it's a single window for you to report, view, and act on all of your purchase transactions and obligations with respect to consumer use tax. And it's not just about accruing the tax, but also understanding your situation out of your vendors, who is charging you correctly versus who is not. Are your purchases truly taxable or non-taxable or exempt, right? Having all that view will help you assess and course correct in future. And then Avalara already the mission Scott talked about. It works with all of our business applications integrations, including Avalara's pre-installed AvaTax integration, which takes care of your sales tax needs as well. All right, moving ahead, we will see how does the product look like. So we launched the product in beta in September, and we are going GA this month, end of this month. That's where these screens are coming from. There are two bigger parts of the solution, which is number one, you configure, you tell us your obligations with respect to your vendors. Your vendors could be trusted. You know that they're charging you right sales tax, so there is no need to assess consumer use. I would like to call out that even if you do set up a trusted vendor, we'll still calculate the numbers, match it, and show you as a report that are your trusted vendors really trusted or not, right? And then you can flag them for exempt purchases. Similarly, you can set up the list of your cost centers and mark your purchases with respect to those cost centers as exempt or taxable. And you can also take advantage of Avalara's proprietary tax codes and map your items, your procurement items, with respect to the taxability codes we have got. Once you're done with all those, you can define thresholds to think of thresholds in this way that anything less than let's say $1, you don't care about that difference because, or it could be a penny, whatever your threshold is based on your needs of the business and your risk potential. You can think through it and think about whether your vendor is charging you correct sales tax, or is that a rounding problem in software. So you don't really care about that. You can set that threshold. So we will only flag it and accrue if it is above the threshold, or the materiality for your business. Let's say any invoice less than $100 doesn't matter a lot, so you can set that amount threshold as well. There is allocations. Allocations will allow you to, even if your invoice has just one line item, you can set a rule on our side telling that this purchase is going to be used in multiple different locations. So when you see this one line item, please do assess use tax based on different jurisdictions, proportionated by quantity or a percentage of those line item amounts. Think about that your company is buying laptops for your employees centrally, but then distributing it to different locations of those employees, right? So you need to, even if you were charged sales tax centrally for the supply of those laptops, you need to assess use tax based on the user's location of those laptops. So allocation allows you to do that with respect to multiple cost centers, multiple taxability mappings, as well as expense accounts and multiple addresses. Next up is, once you're done with these settings, this is the heart of the solution, where once you start passing transactions to AvaTax, either using an integration in your ERP system, or you upload batch transactions, you will see those transactions appearing here in 3 different status. And number one, you see accrued, which means that it passes all the checks, and the tax was either not charged or undercharged beyond, and the variance is beyond your threshold. So we already automatically accrued that tax, and that tax will be reported on your use tax liability. Number 2, you see need review, which means that you have set a threshold for yourself to review it. Let's say if the use tax is due more than $100, or if it's a purchase greater than $1,000. Similarly, like you said, controls in your ERP with respect to approval of accounts payable, invoices and payments, right? It's similar to that you can set that materiality threshold here and carefully review and approve and accrue the use tax then. And then you can also set thresholds for short pay and notifying you based on the overcharge and how to deal with that, even though that's not going to be, really become your use tax liability and an accrual on our side. We also want to help you report and course correct in your ERP itself, so you can make sense of it. There are vendors whom you do not want to pay if they are not charging you the right number. So you only want to pay the item cost to them and not really pay the taxes. So you can get those transactions flagged based on your rule and criteria, and then you can take care of that in your ERP as well. And similarly, there will be vendors where you want to go ahead and pay what we calculate as the right sales tax amount they should have charged. You may have that kind of arrangement with those vendors. So you will be flagged for pay as, calculated, not really billed. And you get all that information back in your ERPs, so you can set a workflow where, your GLs are being taken care, and, you're really, flowing the numbers to us on your use tax liability returns as well as getting them back in your ERP as well. So there's no reconciliation nightmare at the end of the day. With that, this is the heart of the solution. So I would, ask you to pay a moment to this screen and see what it holds. So, it talks about the total amount of that invoice, the taxable purchases, the charge tax, what your vendor charged you in sales tax, and the tax calculated by AvaTax, and then the variance. And then based on your rules, it accrues. Not in every case it will accrue. There could be a threshold which is affecting that accrual. But basically, this is the heart of the solution, and you can drill down on each document and see how we calculated what we calculated. You can also see what rules impacted them based on your allocation configurations and thresholds. With that, I take the opportunity to introduce my colleague, Kate Thornton, hand it over to her for walking us through our Oracle integration. Thank you.
Great, thank you so much, Naveen. Hello, everybody. I'm going to switch gears a little bit, and we're going to talk about the exciting developments with our ERP partner, Oracle. And just to level set here, we have a lot of integrations with a lot of Oracle products. We're going to be focusing on the cloud, Oracle Cloud ERP for this presentation. So this slide here is actually a slide from Oracle. In the end of September, Oracle's Cloud World. Perhaps you've attended, perhaps you've just heard of it, perhaps you don't know what I'm talking about, but Cloud World is a very, very, very large conference. In one of the keynotes, this slide was brought up, and what I want to point out here is that we are one of the few vendors, kind of an elite group of partners, sorry, not vendors, who are embedded within Oracle using their B2B, secure B2B cloud service. This is another slide also from the same conference. This was a joint presentation between Oracle and Avalara. And the bullet point that I highlighted here identifies the two things we're going to be talking about today, turnkey embedded touchless activation and our seated e-invoicing integration. Okay, so let's talk about turnkey or touchless activation. And I guess I should point out here, the screenshots that I'm showing are all within Oracle. I don't have a single Avalara screenshot for you. And where we're starting, when one of your customers gets a brand new Oracle ERP, so there's, maybe you're an SI for ERP implementations, they're going to come in here and they're going to start with My Enterprise and click on Setup and Maintenance. That's going to bring you to this screen here. This is where you're going to set up the corporate structure, identify the legal entities, organize them in business units, and kind of step through. Every module has required configuration. So you'll come down here and you will reach transaction tax setups. You'll take a look at all the tasks that are required. That's a bit of a tongue twister, tax and tasks. And you'll see right down here at the bottom, it says Manage Indirect Tax Automation with Avalara. Once you click on that, it will bring you to this screen. And this is just kind of a status screen to identify how the configuration is going. There are 3 major areas, and these all happen automatically. So you can go ahead and click on the Initiate button. And at this point, I'm just going to walk you through with a diagram. So we were sitting right there in Oracle ERP Cloud, and you hit the initiate button. That brings you to the secure B2B cloud service. And that service does a connection with our integration platform. When we have that connection, we're able to look at some of those initial configurations that were put in. And what we're going to do is pick up your business units and your legal entities. And that allows us to put together configuration for you in two areas. One is the geography content that's required within the ERP, and the other is the tax codes. With Oracle, it's referred to as the tax regime to rate flow, which is kind of a multifaceted configuration to identify appropriate tax rate types. And the third thing we're doing is automatically configuring Avalara, creating those companies from the legal entities, and providing the nexus. And when that's done, you come back to this screen and all the steps are completed. Truly, the activity here is you click the button and it automatically gets configured for you. The whole process runs in the background, and it takes a couple hours. The biggest part is the tax content import takes the longest. So this is something you can start it, go to lunch, come back, and here you are. You're ready to enter accounts receivable invoices. You're ready to enter accounts payable invoices. Just a few points about this. Really, I think what this does is kind of highlight that these tax configurations are foundational for the financials module. So, and the other thing I'll say is it can eliminate configuration rework. It's very common when, the ERP is being configured. Transaction taxes are not necessarily part of that initial implementation. So there can be some configurations done before the thought of integrating with the tax engine would happen. What happens now is it really brings that configuration forward to the beginning of those projects. Another thing I guess I want to point out, this is available in Oracle now. It's in their 23D release, which is the last quarter of the year. It is focused on the United States. At this point, we are working on multiple projects still with Oracle, so you will see more coming out over the next year. One of the things we're doing is expanding this to over 200 countries to get that data in there for your customers. Okay, now we're going to talk about the other big thing, which is e-invoicing. So this is just kind of a level set of, I believe you should be aware, I think we've done multiple presentations on our e-invoicing and live reporting module engine. And what that's doing is it's actually solving different ways you're working with tax authorities. Every country picks kind of a different process, and they sort of fall into these buckets. I won't walk through these too much. I just wanted to kind of give you a level set reminder here. And what we're doing, I refer to this as a spaghetti slide. So what we're doing is we're taking that spaghetti where you have to work separately if you don't have e-invoicing and live reporting. You have to work separately with each country, identify what is their process. You may have to sign up with different partner agreements. There's definitely manual code that has to happen, and it's all different. So what we're doing is we're providing you a method where we connect one way. And again, we've already built the integration. So there's almost no technical work at all, just maybe picking up information in Oracle. Very, very quick. And what we collaborate with is we hook into Oracle's collaboration messaging framework. And this is another Oracle specific thing. This is Oracle's release notes. And you can see in the 23D release that they have identified we are a seated service provider. And it even gives a little bit of information here of how to configure, how to hook up with us. Okay, so there's a few advantages here that I want to point out. One is that, we are a seated provider. These, the way that we're connected in, you can see the status. You'll see this managed transaction screen here. It's just a little excerpt of it. But in the accounts receivable module, this is kind of a main place for looking at your transaction, seeing the status, seeing what's going on. And we show right here what's gone on with your transaction. It'll move through multiple different statuses until it reaches accepted. If there happened to have been a rejection or an error in the processing, we will surface that here so you're aware and can see what's happening and be able to correct. And here's just kind of walking through each of those steps. And just to sort of sum things up, what this integration does, and I'll talk about this the middle point here. It's really a seamless integration, and everything is happening behind the scenes. So it's a silent service for users. There's no interruption of the workflows they're used to today. And of course, it's easy to expand to new country mandates as those come out or as the business expands into different countries. The other points are really talking a little bit more about our e-invoicing and live reporting capabilities, that we are adhering to local legal requirements. We're up to date with the latest regulations. And of course, this is one integrated solution for you that will handle many country mandates. So there's no parallel maintenance of disparate solutions. Okay, I could talk a lot more about all these things, go a lot deeper into it, and really, show you what's going on, so you can understand maybe how to implement this for your customers. Feel free to get this QR code and put your information in, and then of course, there's always questions you can put in the chat. And I do see one right here that's asking what seated means. And what that means is when you go into Oracle to do the configuration, if you click a drop down, our name is right there. And there's data that also populates that makes it work. So you don't have to step through each individual field. With that, I will pass things off to Adrian. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Kate. Hi, everyone. My name is Adrian. I am the product manager for our Salesforce connectors here at Avalara. And I'll be talking about our ecosystem with the connectors that's integrated on the Salesforce platform. So a little bit about the portfolio that we have here. We do have quite a few managed packages and integrations on the platform. And if you're taking a look at the slide, this is a document workflow from left to right of how, for the most part, we care about tax compliance from an Avalara standpoint. And we capture those transactions with an e-commerce solution with guest users and registered guests placing orders on checkout flows. Those orders are then ingressed and pushed into the CRM and quoting and ordering system, which we have 2 integrations for. And then those are pushed over into the invoice and commitment side of things and posted to general ledgers. It's at this point that the transactions would be committed and posted to AvaTax, which you would then file for returns and remittance to the tax jurisdictions, which we always recommend using our Avalara returns services for that. And then, of course, you have inventory and fulfillment on the right-hand side, which is everything that happens from when the user or the guest user registers and clicks the checkout process and places the order, everything until the product is actually tangible product is delivered to their front door. So just to kind of talk a little bit about some of these integrations here, we have Demandware with this, which is our B2C commerce on the very left-hand side that we have a cartridge for. We have the Commerce Cloud connector, which is our connector and integration for commerce, but on the Lightning Core platform. And then moving on, you have the Sales Cloud connector, which is our bread and butter of everything. Hopefully everybody's pretty familiar with what that is, integrating on the opportunity. Those opportunities then feed into quotes from CPQ. And we have an integration for that as well too under the Revenue Cloud. Moving on to the invoicing and commitment, it's at this point that you can actually invoke Service Cloud, and that wouldn't be tied to the e-commerce side of things. It would be kind of a standalone from our Avalara perspective to commit transactions for the field service solution. You have subscriptions management, which is also under the Revenue Cloud, which is a unique use case for advanced subscriptions scenarios. And then those feed into Salesforce billing, which then will post them to general ledgers, or likewise, you can outsource them to the ERPs that some of my colleagues have been talking about on the presentation so far. And then last but not least, we do have the order fulfillment. So you can have that commitment happen also on the order fulfillment side of things at the very right-hand side under inventory and fulfillment. So as you can tell, we have quite a few integrations and we have quite a few managed packages. We've been receiving for quite some time the feedback that having to manage a lot of different managed packages in Salesforce org is really challenging. And so we've heard your feedback and we've taken that carefully into consideration. And so we've started this initiative across our entire portfolio to start merging some of these connectors so that you're not seeing the 7 or 8 in the previous slide that you did, and you're able to keep track of these a lot easier. It's a lot more advantageous if you don't have to manage and configure and set up and migrate all of your managed packages. So the first one that we're starting out with right now, and we're currently developing this right now, and we'll get deeper into the development details and go through our general availability process on our side and release that in Q1. So our Q1 here at Avalara would be from January to March, and so we'd be releasing this within March. And the things that we're going to be, the 2 connectors that we're going to be merging for this is everything under the Commerce Cloud on the core Lightning side. You'll see that there's we have the Commerce Cloud connector, like I just mentioned, and then we have the order management connector that I mentioned as well too. Those are natively and traditionally considered under the Salesforce world under the Commerce Cloud solution portfolio. So that's why we decided to actually combine those together and make sure that we have one solution offering for that. And then the next 2 connectors, next 3 connectors actually that we're planning to combine are under the Revenue Cloud. So I mentioned the Revenue Cloud on the previous slide. We have these that are related to more of the quoting and ordering process, and then the invoicing and commitment process. Again, the traditional packaging that Salesforce kind of rolls this out is under the Revenue Cloud. And so that's one of the things that we wanted to emulate as well too, is one Avalara for Salesforce Revenue Cloud connector. So if you're a customer today and you're using our CPQ connector and our billing connector, you can expect to just in the future have to manage only one of those, which is a really huge advantage for those managing third-party apps. The next part that we wanted to kind of talk about is our new connector for the Salesforce Service Cloud that we're really excited about. We just launched this back in November, and we've already been getting amazing feedback from it too. And we're excited to kind of announce that we're the first tax provider within the Service Cloud. So the integration points that we cover with the Service Cloud connector would be on the work orders, the work order line items, and the products consumed. Hopefully you're familiar with that if you're familiar with the field service solution. And then we also have the address validation features on the work order and account records that we've implemented too. There's service reports within the Salesforce Service Cloud that are really critical to use cases as far as sending service reports to customers. And you can actually add our connector fields to there so that you can also expose sales tax data within that service reports. And then that's included within customers, which is a really powerful experience. And then of course, just like we talked about earlier, you can actually commit those transactions directly from Service Cloud into returns for sales tax returns into taxing jurisdictions downstream in AvaTax. So hopefully I'll be able to click on the YouTube video here, maybe not. Yeah, I figured so. So what I'm going to try here is I'm going to try sharing my screen, Scott. Keep me honest here.
Okay.
And let me know if you're not able to see it, or if you're able to see the video, YouTube video. Are you able to see it, Scott?
It looks like, yes, we can. It looks like it can. It came through.
Okay. You see the YouTube video,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. And just so you know, there's a couple of Q&A questions that popped up while you were talking, which were good questions.
Yeah, absolutely. Let me go ahead and finish up the Salesforce presentation portion, and then I'll go ahead and address some of those questions at the end. So
Okay.
the YouTube video here, and let me know if you guys aren't able to see the YouTube video here, but this is a demo video of our Sales Cloud connector that we just launched. It's a 2-minute video that I really like, that summarizes the entire connector's functionality, and everything under the bottom is just really just configurations and setup and all of those things. So here you're on the home page, or on the home page for the Service Cloud connector, and you'll see that here's the work order, that object
Adrian,
that everybody
it doesn't
integrates with.
look like it is playing for the audience. Sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, sorry about that.
No problem.
I thought it,
No, that's
it
okay.
looked like it came through. Not sure if it's better to, I don't know, walk through it or. Sorry.
Well, let me try one last time and see if we can push through on this. Can you see it?
Yes, we can see it.
Awesome. So let me go ahead and back up here. So here's the homepage for the Service Cloud solution in Salesforce. And you'll see that the work order is the main object that everybody integrates with on the field service side of things. This is the transactional object that we care about the most from an Avalara perspective. And you'll see here that there's actually a section for Avalara in here, and I've added my connector managed package components in here, and I've added them into a separate section here. You can also take a look at this calculate tax button on the right-hand side. And we also have the calculate tax checkbox that's there for automation purposes. We can get you more information on how to set up the automation as well too. You also have the validated address option under the button. And then drilling down into the objects on the line item side of things, we also have the tax breakdown details that will show the different taxing jurisdictions and the rates that have been returned on the tax call itself after you've calculated tax. Similarly, we also care about the products consumed, the tangible products that have been consumed on the field service appointments. And so that's what this is capturing as well too. And the work order line items are really service-oriented service-oriented line items that we also want to capture too, things like an installation, a router, and so forth. We've worked really hard to centralize all of the connector settings within one location under the installed packages, and everything for the connector lives here so that you don't have to go through disparate settings within the Salesforce platform. You'll see the AvaTax settings within the configurations and your license key, hopefully things that everybody in this audience are pretty familiar with. And then we'll move ahead, and one of the things that we will cover here before the end of the presentation is the mapper package, which does include a nice UI. And the Salesforce mapper package is a way for you to map your Salesforce fields to the AvaTax fields that you're passing on tax calculation. We're really proud of it. It's something that we feel differentiates us from the competition, and it really cuts down on configuration times from having to develop the entire connector from startup to use different fields to just click and point like you saw there on the user interface. So again, with that, I'm going to go ahead and stop the screen share. And then I'm going to go ahead and continue the presentation here. So one of the other things that we wanted to call out was the connector manuals. We wanted to make sure that we reinforce this within our Salesforce connectors, because we do work really hard to make sure that those things are kept up to the date. And they're typically 35 to 60 pages. You can kind of think of them as, like I said, the connector manuals. Everything in there is indicated as out-of-the-box features, fundamental integration points. That screenshot that you're seeing on the very bottom-hand side is a table of the integration points, which is really helpful to understand what the connector will actually do. And that's included within the systems integration documents. And on the right-hand side, you're seeing what the title page of the system integration documents. One of the things that we'll call out here is make sure that you're not editing code within the connector package itself and republishing it. That would put you out of our support models. Always strongly recommended to stick within the out-of-the-box functionality and features. So the Salesforce mapper, just like I kind of mentioned earlier and alluded to it, It's a solution. It comes secondary. It's not extra for a feature. It always comes with all of your Salesforce connectors if you choose to use it or not. And it allows you to point all of your fields in Salesforce in blue on the screenshot there to the AvaTax fields in orange on the right-hand side. Most of our connectors do include the UI to make it click and point, but if there's no UI, fret not. You can actually edit the XML from the mapper package and manipulate the field mappings in the back end that way. If you're looking for assistance with that, feel free to submit us an Avalara support case, and we're always happy to help walk you through how to do that exactly. So one of the other things that we wanted to touch about, and I know pushing here a little bit on time, but if you're familiar with e-commerce, you know that there's a movement out there for headless commerce. And what it is, it basically decouples your back end from your front end. And so you link the back end and the front end through interoperable APIs. And what that really does is it empowers you to have your back end within your own control outside of Salesforce or your whatever e-commerce solution that you're using. And that's a pretty big deal. And the reason that's a pretty big deal is because if we move on to the next slide here, you'll see that the performance improvements and the checkout conversions and everything else is going to go up highly if you have a lot more control of that and you're not relying on a platform like B2C Commerce's cloud resourcing tools. So faster product list pages, checkout flows, and everything else. And so that's kind of what the next slide is showing is this is what our current connector looks like for B2C Commerce. It's our cartridge, if you're familiar with formerly Demandware. And if you start on the left-hand side here, you'll see that there's code that's hosted within B2C Commerce under the cartridges. And then the Visualforce logo that you see there is the source, the code that you're also hosting that you're manipulating, within your B2C Commerce storefront. All of that is pushed through, and your continuous improvement and continuous development is always executed within B2C Commerce, right? And the runtime engine is always going to be limited to Salesforce here, which is what you're seeing on the right-hand side box. And you do all your automation testing from there. This is what it's going to look like once we finish our development, and this is going to be happening starting in January, and we're hoping to release this sometime in April or May. And the new architecture that is going to be applied here from the composable architecture standpoint is everything left of the blue line there is over the internet, and there's APIs, and that's what the cloud symbol is there. And again, we're just moving everything from outside of the right-hand side from B2C Commerce to the back end over the internet, and then you're connecting it with APIs. And our connector is going to be compatible for all of that stuff. So now you can host it within your own repository for your code. You can integrate your continuous improvement and continuous development from the vendors of your choice, whether you're using Node.js or GitLab. And then you can use the runtime provider that you prefer. That's a really powerful experience because now you're able to not necessarily rely on Salesforce's runtime solution if you don't want to. You can outsource it to Azure, you can outsource it to AWS and have a lot more greater control on performance, scalability, load balancing, and all those different things. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to my colleague Logan, and he's going to cover the D365 Business Central.
Hey, everybody. Thank you, Adrian. So we will keep this part relatively brief, but we do want to let you guys know the new feature that we have added to the Business Central connector. So I will push you. So starting in our version 22.3 connector update, we did add the new feature to allow for customers to select whether they would like new line items to be to have tax calculated on it every time they add a new line item. So we heard this feedback from multiple partners, especially people who were looking to implement third-party payment integrations like VersaPay and ChargeLogic. This was really a big pushing point over the last year or so, and we listened to the use cases, and we saw really the value in able to provide this over to our partners to give them that flexibility and that option to give their customers. So we made it a point to add this in here this year. And so one of the big reasons that we really saw this there were a lot of use cases for returns and credit memos that really could benefit from having this feature, again, especially using third-party payment systems. So one of the big key features of this is, as I mentioned, it is going to be configurable. So by default, it is going to be marked as disabled because we do not want people sending an exorbitant amount of tax calls if that's not what they're wanting. So with that being said, there are billing implications with this because Avalara does go on an API usage billing tier, especially with Business Central. So we wanted to make sure that people have the option to turn this on, but also have the option to keep this disabled. So by turning this on or enabling this feature in the configuration options, it will increase your tax calls to the AvaTax API service, tax call service. So that is something to consider when setting this up for either your customers or if you yourself are enabling this feature. Please do consider the billing ramifications that if you are going to have large either orders with many line items or many orders with even just a few line items, having this enabled could impact your billing with Avalara. So please make sure you are considering that before enabling this feature in your configuration options. And so, as I mentioned, this is available in versions starting with 22.3. So if you're not on that version yet, you're not going to see this in your configuration options. But if you would like to have this available, please just make sure you go in, and all of our updates since 22.3 should have this available for you. All right. So briefly, it is a very simple setup to configure this. So you're going to go to your Avalara AvaTax configuration option within Business Central. From there, you will see all your general settings, your tax calculation settings, address validation. This particular feature will be under the tax calculation section, and you will see the Recalculate Tax Online button right below about the fourth one down there on the right side, depending on the size of your window. So as you can see here, it is disabled by default, but by simply going to the top and clicking Edit, you can enable that option there for all your transactions moving forward. And so what you'll see is here's an example of a sales invoice page. And so this will work on sales invoices, sales orders, sales quotes. So simply what you will do is you will add your first line item there, whatever that may be. In this case, we have item number 1001 at a price of $150. All you simply need to do, in lieu of going to the statistics option, which is what we have used in the past, and that is the traditional way of calculating your taxes, simply moving to the next line and beginning to add that next line item, the system will automatically calculate that tax. And you can see there the total tax has been calculated at $1,380. And then you can see your total included tax. So not much has changed. You can still click into the statistics, go into the details, and see the tax breakdown of the jurisdictions. And you can see that by line item. All of that has stayed the same. Essentially, the only thing that has changed is you no longer need to go and click the statistics option in order for that tax to calculate. And so as you can see, the billing ramifications here, if you have multiple line items, it is going to make that tax call each and every time. So I can't emphasize enough, that is a major consideration to keep in the back of your head when either developing this or connecting into Avalara Business Central Connector, or just simply as a user thinking about enabling this. All right, and so that is all that we have for the line item recalculation. I will kick it back over to Scott to wrap it up and go over any questions.
Yeah, thanks, Logan. And Thanks to all the speakers today to giving us all the product knowledge, and also to the audience. Thanks for the time. I know you're all busy trying to probably close some deals to end the year. And our goal in this webinar is to provide you a useful product content and at least some nuggets that you can then use to better serve your customers. And then in closing, I just wanted to talk about what's coming forward into our Q1, like Adrian said, that starts January 1st. Firstly, I think some of you are aware we are launching a new partner program. It is coming, it will be officially fully launched on January 31st, and our SVP of Global Partnerships, Meg Higgins, will be leading this webinar, and she'll walk you through the program and the vision for 2024. So join us there. The link is in the related content section, so you can register today if you'd like, and I'm sure you'll get other emails as reminders to register, because we're super excited about that and streamlining the partner program and also partner support model. And then secondly, we will have our next webinar in the middle of March, roughly around March 15th. The date kind of still to be solidified, but it will be around that time. And we'll be walking through, obviously, I've already talked about the partner program, but we'll be double clicking on accounts payable and what Naveen talked about today. And this will be available in some of our NetSuite and Microsoft Dynamics integrations, and we'll walk you through which ones and how to implement them. Thirdly, we'll be also talking about NetSuite e-invoicing. You know, we're very excited about this new embedded experience with NetSuite as well. We talked about with Oracle, which is obviously owns NetSuite. But in case you missed it, NetSuite and Avalara announced at SuiteWorld in October that we are partnering to help customers streamline their e-invoicing and invoicing needs even more within NetSuite. So you can see a theme there with the embedded play. And then also building off what Adrian shared today, the Salesforce cross-border for Sales Cloud launch that he discussed briefly, as well as the OMS and B2B merging to make the onboarding to B2B more streamlined and efficient. And then lastly, we have two product enhancements that is going towards automation, making it more efficient. Firstly is the SaaS VAT reporting data mapping wizard launch that helps eliminate manual work, and partners can map their data fields and apply any transformation rules in formatting that data. So it's just a more kind of streamline, make it more efficient for you. And then lastly, you can see a theme here too, is e-invoicing country expansion to Singapore, USA, Turkey, Israel, Malaysia, and India will be key as we continue to build out that country availability with e-invoicing. And then that's all we have for today. If you have any last questions, feel free to put it into the Q&A. And don't forget that we will email you a link to watch the presentation on demand in the next 24 hours. And be sure, again, last plug for clicking on all the resources links that we provided. And then again, March 15th, around that time, we'll have our next webinar to talk about product updates again. And wanted to say happy holidays and happy new year. Have a good one. Bye.